Good morning, everybody. Did you survive the blizzard yesterday? Woo! I'm a good, hearty, Wisconsin-born lesbian, and yes, I drive a Subaru and have a dog, so I had everything covered yesterday. Everything. I'm just saying. Our chalice lighting this morning is from Micah, and it's one of my favorites. Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God.
This month at River Road, we're exploring justice and equity as our theme, a time to consider not just what those high vaunted words actually mean, but what kinds of commitments are required to bring them to bear in an uncertain world, both now and in the past that stretches behind us, and in the future we will build together. This morning, we are so very blessed to be joined in that exploration by our colleague, my friend, Reverend Karen's longtime colleague, U.S. Air Force Chaplain Captain Anthony Jenkins, right here with us. Now, Anthony currently serves the 11th Wing located at Joint Base Anacostia-Bolling here in D.C., knowing that for he and his family in D.C., this area is very much home. He has served in a number of ways. He served in both the U.S. Army and the U.S. Army Chaplain Corps. He was ordained in October of 2017 at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia, Maryland, where he served for 7 years, first as their intern and then rolling right in to a role as their assistant minister, in which Reverend Karen was indeed his colleague in service there. He and his family live in Ellicott City, and today he's bringing with him a reflection on the courage, the many, many roles, and the remarkable resilience of Harriet Tubman, holding that warm welcome for Anthony, holding those deep questions about what it does actually take to bring justice and equity to bear, grateful once again to gather together, know that you are welcome here as well. If it is your first time or your 40th year in this place, you are welcome here, and we want to invite everyone to join us for coffee, conversation, cookies if you get there fast enough, right through these doors in the fellowship hall. In that spirit, grateful to be together, knowing we are nourished not by the achievement, but by the ever-present pursuit of justice and equity. Come, let us worship together.
Well, good morning, River Road. Good to see you. Good to be with you. Many thanks to Nancy, Reverend Nancy, for sharing you all with me. So glad to be back with Karen again, who's a colleague, mentor, role model, friend, all that kind of good stuff. Good to be back with her. Good to be through the snow, all that good stuff. Although I spent a good amount of time in upstate New York as a child, and you could have a foot and a half on the ground. We would walk to school. It's the old, the stories like, I walked uphill both ways, but really, never closed school, almost never canceled. So this was like a light dusting, but glad to be here in any case. Good to be here a couple of months into Black History Month. It is also a couple of weeks before what will be Women's History Month. No better way really to rise to both of those occasions than to center ourselves in the gravity of the visionary faith healer, freedom fighter, force of nature, Harriet Tubman. Most people have wrapped their heads around the Underground Railroad conductor part. What is over most people's heads and is way over my pay grade is that she was also a U.S. Army veteran. Nurse, cook, scout, translator, counterintelligence, counterterrorism, special forces team leader. First U.S. woman in military history to lead an armed expedition. Took the U.S. government a shamefully long time to acknowledge and honor her service, even longer to pay her for it. Ironically, in theory, she will be the face of the $20 bill by 2030, though I'm sure the critics of critical race theory will be in no hurry to cash those $20 bills. I am in uniform this morning because Harriet Tubman was never allowed to be. To bring home the heart of her Medal of Honor-worthy service and the great debt that all hearts in our homeland owe to the woman codenamed Moses. In ancient Hebrew, the word wisdom is a feminine noun. For many ancient Greeks and Gnostics, aka first century OG Christians, wisdom is the divine feminine goddess Sophia, a name which translates to clever, skillful, intelligent, discerning, wise. 13 old school Gnostic gospels were discovered buried in a hidden jar in 1945 in a desert graveyard in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, one of them composed by a distinctly divine feminine Sophia-like voice. So we'll open this hour's portal with some words from that Gnostic scripture called the Thunder, Perfect Mind. For I am the wisdom of the Greeks. I am one whose image is great in Egypt. You awaiting me, take me to yourselves. Do not banish me from before your eyes. Do not let your voice be hateful toward me, nor your hearing. Do not be ignorant of me in any place at any time. I am the knowledge of my own name. For I am the first and the last. I am the honored and the scorned. I am the mother and the daughter. I have had many weddings, and I have taken no partner. I am a midwife and a woman who does not give birth. Do not disregard me. Do not fear my power, for I am present in all fears, and I am strength in agitation. I am the silence that is incomprehensible, an insight whose memory is great. I am the voice whose sounds are many, and the word whose appearances are many. I am the woman crying out, and I am cast upon the face of the earth. I am the utterance of my own name. Please rise as you are able in mind, body, or spirit for our morning hymn, verses 1 and 2 of Go Down Moses, Let My People Go. For I am the first and the last. I am the honored and the scorned. I am the mother and the daughter. I have had many weddings, and I have taken no partner. I am a midwife and a woman who does not give birth. I am the voice whose sounds are many, and the word whose appearances are many. I am the woman crying out, and I am cast upon the face of the earth. I am the utterance of my own name. My birth name was actually Araminta, a word which translates fittingly in Old English to prayer and protection. Family and friends knew me by the nickname Minty. The world would come to know me by my mother's name, Harriet, which I later adopted as my own, and many others would know me by my code name, Moses. I was the voice whose sounds are many. I was also the word whose appearances were many. Many of your present-day scholars say, I first appeared in this life on January 29, 1822, near the Blackwater River Refuge on Maryland's eastern shore, based in large part on the payment receipts of the midwife who delivered me. I would spend my life being a mobile home, a refuge returning to Maryland many times to deliver many enslaved brown angels, refugees, across the border to freedom in the north. Never the same path twice. I was born into the heartbreaking injustice of domestic terrorism, slavery, which many now say was America's original sin, though 56 million slain Native Americans might say differently. Had those nations, 90% of our original indigenous populations lived to tell the tale. Nevertheless, I was the sixth of 9 children, the last of which was actually named Moses. One day, our owner tried to sell Moses. My mom threatened to split our owner's head open, so he quickly reconsidered. You could say armed resistance ran in my blood. My mother was a house slave, cooking for that owner's family around the clock. House slaves had little, if any, family time, so I was the mother and the daughter. And I was a midwife, trusted to help with the birthing and the raising of my younger siblings. You could say I was the family first sergeant. I would not give birth physically in this life, though I would later adopt a daughter. I would say I became a kind of surrogate mother. Many trusted me with their lives and were reborn free in the promised land. My parents' faith was Christian. My personal faith was essentially the mantra of the prophet Micah: do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Like the prophet Moses, I had a visionary kind of faith in deliverance. In my teens, I once refused to help a nearby slave owner restrain an enslaved man who had left the field without permission. The owner threw a 2-pound weight through the air at him, missed over his head, and hit me instead. A wild pitch that nearly split my head open. For the rest of my life, that traumatic brain injury would give me crippling headaches and epileptic seizures. But for the rest of my life, it also gave me profound inner sight. It broke me open. I became a wounded warrior with deeply profound dreams and prophetic visions that I trusted to guide many lives to glory. I married a free man, Joint Tubman, in 1844. Shortly thereafter, my family's owner died, and his widow tried again to sell me and my siblings. I was determined not to wait, not to leave it up to fate. My husband, John, however, didn't have the heart, saying he would neither join me on my escape nor follow me north into my own freedom. I took his name, but apparently I had taken no partner. I once said that slavery was the closest thing to hell, which I trusted had no fury like this woman scorned. I also said once that I had a right to one of two things, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other. I was the woman crying out, and I was cast upon the face of the earth. I was the utterance of my own name. We're going to send our children to their classes with some music. Cliff is going to lead us.
As we hold this story of one who uttered her own name into an unjust world, the story of one who persisted even through the pain, we know that we also gather to tell and retell our own stories, the stories of what brings us to tears, what brings us to laughter, what gives our lives both meaning and purpose. There is so much that lives in the silent sanctuary of your own hearts today. And I want to invite you at any time in the service to light a candle as you're so moved, to make a space for those most important pieces of your own truths. There are a few joys and sorrows I want to share with all of us. Firstly, that yesterday at Riderwood Village, we celebrated the remarkable life of the very kind, wonderful river roader, Lynn Starbird. Lynn and his wife, Ann, were members of River Road for a very long time. His most important role in this place was as a choir spouse. So grateful for the music that you all bring. We were sad yesterday that Ann fell earlier in the week. She's recovering well, but it was painful and it was hard. And that fall meant that she couldn't be with us at Lynn's memorial service, though her presence was most palpable, even in absentia. I encourage you to send a card or a note to Ann for her own recovery and an affirmation of her remarkable strength and partnership with Lynn all these years. We also lift up this week Doug Belling. His mother, Alice, died peacefully at Holy Cross Hospital in Silver Spring on February 5th. Doug and his family have been active in vibrant parts of River Road for some years, as has his sister, who is a part of our community, watching online nearly every Sunday. They honor her life. She was 91 years old and had been suffering a slow decline. Cards are appreciated to Doug and to his sister Erica and to the whole family. We also continue to grieve the loss of Bob Coe, again, one of the kindest, gentlest among us. His service will be here at River Road on March 2nd, and I encourage you to check the e-weekly for more details. Grace Vandeveer's mother also passed away this last week. Grace, of course, one of the most wonderful and gifted among our singers here in the choir and in our music program. Grace's mother is a longtime member of the Fairfax Unitarian Church and a singer in her own right of great gifts and talents. So our thoughts and wishes are with Grace, and again, cards are welcome for her. And finally, in this time of joys and of concerns, we lift up the life of one who left a great, almost unimaginably great impression on this congregation, Dorothy Barthelmess, our longtime administrator here at River Road. Dorothy passed away this week after a short time in hospice care. She had had a fall around Thanksgiving. In many ways, Dorothy, for years and years, was the glue that held this place together in our most formative times. As River Road changed and grew, redefined who we understood ourselves to be, always there was Dorothy in the office, running it with a quick wit and, to be true, an iron hand. She will be so deeply missed by her friends and her beloveds and by this institution that in so many ways she has made possible for us.
Everybody all right so far? Do not disregard me, and do not fear my power, for I am present in all fears, and I am strength in agitation. I am silence that is incomprehensible, and insight whose memory is great. I am the voice whose sounds are many, and the word whose appearances are many. I am the knowledge of my own name. It was a silent night, September 1849, if memory serves. 27 years a slave, and I was plenty agitated. My power was in this knowledge. Before I would spend another night being a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free. Now was the time for liberty or death. I didn't fear either. One way or another, I would steal myself away from this Egypt. So under the quilt of that night, I fled for freedom, singing my first soft black border song, a solo blues, on the Underground Railroad, the heartland of secret routes and safe houses that helped escaped enslavees journey safely to the free states in the northern U.S. and Canada, maintained by a diverse, multicultural, beloved community of free blacks and both white and Native American allies. By law, I was a fugitive. Any slave catcher could deliver me immediately back to my master for a reward. So I traveled only at night by the light of the North Star, Polaris. It never changed position in the sky and looked very much like the hollowed-out gourds from which we enslavees drank our water. Thus we called Polaris the drinking gourd, and we followed it religiously. I trusted it with my life. By day, I often posed as a slave, pretending to work at the homes of abolitionists, hiding in carts or crawl spaces or Quaker sanctuaries that served as black sites, covert combat outposts. I adopted many disguises, accents, dialects, code words, and identities so that I would be disregarded. switching codes and masking to avoid capture. I never learned to read words, but I learned very early on how to read people. You could say military intelligence and counterintelligence was in my blood. I was the word whose appearances were many. Much like Moses, a river was my refuge. I made my way north along the Choptank Riverbank through Delaware and finally across the border into the promised land of Pennsylvania. I later said that when I crossed over to the other side, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. I recalled there being such a glory over everything. But I couldn't let go of the silent memory of my people, my family and friends back home, and the injustice of me being free while they remained in chains was incomprehensible. Like Moses, I heard perfectly the thunder of the divine's distant talking drum. I knew in my mind that the pharaohs, the slave owners, would never just let my people go. Mine eyes had seen the glory. So I set my mind to going back down behind enemy lines to guide my loved ones to freedom's perfect peace of mind. Your present-day scholars say I led 13 of these search and rescue missions over 11 years as an Underground Railroad conductor, delivering some 70 souls across the border and advising many hundreds more. Most of my passengers were perfect strangers, but they all trusted me with their lives. I trusted my visions to guide us through those hard nights. I trusted my disguises to hide us, sometimes in plain sight. I trusted my knowledge of the pathways and the waterways. I trusted the thunder of signal intelligence, the spirituals I sang to alert my passengers to any danger present along the path. My heart trusted the homes of many guardian angels along the way, like William Still, Thomas Garrett, and Frederick Douglass. And I also trusted my revolver, partly to protect us from slave catchers and bloodhounds, partly to ensure that no passengers heeded any fear-filled temptations to flee back to their plantations. You go on, or you die. That's what I would say to many would-be deserters, liberty or death. And I never lost a passenger, not even to friendly fire. In truth, they didn't need to fear my power, for I was present in all their fears, and I was strength in agitation. I was the knowledge of my own name.
River Road is such a vibrant and active place, but we're also a community of generosity, where we do the hard but faithful work of building the beloved community together. To learn more about how we give of our financial treasure, you can check out our website at rruuc.org. There you can find information on all of our cool programs and all the ways to connect to the mission and the vision of this community. You can also give right there on the main page by clicking the blue Give Online button. You can also text to give. The text to give number is 73256. Again, that's 73256. And be sure to add RRUUC and the amount that you'd like to give. The number for text to give is also on your screen and can be found on our website as well. I thank you for your gifts, your time, and your talents, and all of your treasures.
Thank you, choir. Lovely. For I am the wisdom of the Greeks. I am one whose image is great in Egypt. You, awaiting me, take me to yourselves. Do not banish me from before your eyes. Do not let your voice be hateful toward me in any place at any time. I am the utterance of my own name. I was all of 5 feet tall, the notorious small, but I contained multitudes. By the late 1850s, my high-value target image had become great in Egypt. The pharaohs both hated and feared me, as my asymmetrical warfare was way over their heads. But they could neither ignore nor banish me, despite their best efforts. Freedom fighters like John Brown revered my divine feminine gospel, sought my tactical counsel as they heard word of my wisdom and my knowledge of nature, my geographic intelligence. In 1859, I would buy my own piece of nature in Auburn, New York, from a senator, an abode with a promised land zip code. Abolitionists and activists often invited me to speak, as I could speak the language of the oppressed while also voicing the mindset of the oppressors. I was, in Army terms, a 9 Lima, interpreter, translator. And I was the wisdom of all my collected accents, dialects, disguises, identities, and successful black operations. I was the word whose appearances were many. The Civil War broke out in 1861. Many enslaved black souls in the South broke out of plantations and escaped to Union Army forts in the North. Yet, even in the Promised Land, they were considered contraband, seized property. Forced early on by some heartless Union generals to work without pay while having their field song music, their intellectual property, stolen out of thin air from right over their heads. One such song was seized from black voices at Fort Monroe, Virginia in 1862, a border song I'd sung many times on the Underground Railroad in the decade before, "Let My People Go," or "Go Down, Moses." I volunteered to go down to the Union Army's Port Royal camp in South Carolina's Hilton Head district. At first, I was a nurse, caring for agitated black escapees and then also for white Union soldiers. I trusted my own healing remedies from nature, plants, to help fight outbreaks of smallpox and dysentery in the Union's fighting forces. Many soldiers in need came to know my name and to trust it. In 1863, Lincoln's long overdue proclamation of my people's emancipation rolled like thunder through our minds' eyes. Slavery was banished. For the first time, we dared to dream of the sweet smell of freedom's roses. And for the first time, we blacks were allowed to join our own freedom fight. One of the first official all-black Union Army units was the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, commanded by Colonel Robert Gould Shaw, a Unitarian. One of that unit's first enlistees would reach the highest enlisted rank, E9, and become the 54th highest ranking black soldier, Sergeant Major Lewis Douglas, first child of Frederick Douglass. Bless his Purple Heart. Long before the Emancipation Proclamation, I had already been trusted to secretly lead a special team of Union Army Scouts at Port Royal, South Carolina, under the officially unofficial orders of Lincoln's Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton. My intimate and intricate knowledge of the fields made me essentially a field-grade intelligence officer, 05, give or take, with code word clearance. A special force in black operations reporting directly to the White House. I was the knowledge of Mother Nature. South Carolina's rivers and marshes were much like the ones I had known on Maryland's eastern shore. And many Union generals trusted their men's lives to my Special Forces team's maps and reconnaissance. My unit supplied the key intelligence that led to the Union's capture of Jacksonville, Florida. In light of that state's current leadership, should you all end up needing to capture Florida again, my intel should still be good. It's rough down there. It's rough. I knew how to silently, secretly, and safely navigate forces through the dark wilderness while overmatched and under fire. I was the silence that was incomprehensible and insight whose memory was great. Probably my greatest Army memory was June 2nd, 1863. The Combahee River was our refuge. Under the quilt of night, I guided 3 Union Army steamboats around Confederate water mines and torpedoes safely to shore, due largely to intelligence collected by my team from area slaves. I became the first woman trusted to lead an armed expedition in U.S. military history. I sang 750 enslaved brown angels, prisoners of war, onto those ships of liberty, welcoming their uplifted voices to the other side with "Go Down, Moses," according to memoirs. I continued to aid the Union Army until the war ended in 1865, though in hindsight, I was probably more of a Navy SEAL, elite sea, air, and land than Army. I was paid less than $200 for all of my service. My repeated requests for a military pension were ignored. In 1888, I was granted a benefit of $8 a month, a widow's pension, after the death of my second husband, Nelson, who was a veteran. In 1899, my voice was finally heard, but I was only granted $20 a month, a nurse's pension. Still, I would rise to the occasion, spending the rest of my life advocating for civil rights and women's suffrage. I would die with few possessions and almost no money, but I crossed over death's border with few regrets and no fears. I had been a prophet, but more like Moses' brother Aaron than Moses. Moses was born a slave, but was soon adopted by Pharaoh's family and raised in royalty. Aaron, on the other hand, was a prophet born and raised in slavery on Egypt's eastern shore, Goshen. Aaron fought for his freedom and then served faithfully as Moses' interpreter-translator, both to the oppressor and the oppressed. I was the knowledge of my code name, and in the sunlight of my last silence, I knew I'd been a redeeming strength in agitation, that my voice had birthed freedom, and that the holy thunder of my words had forked liberty's lightning. When I finally crossed into home, I had been insight whose memory and lasting image was great. Buried at last in 1913 with military honors at Fort Hill Cemetery in my adopted home of Auburn, New York. The prophet Khalil Gibran once wrote, "The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain." My heart contains multitudes of joy for being African American. For I am the united sorrow and joy of Black History Month. And I am the united joy and sorrow of Women's History Month. And my homeland, the United States, is where my heart was and is. However, My forever home is in every heart that does justice, loves kindness, and walks humbly with their God, as did this goddess. I am your knowledge of my wisdom. You are the utterance of my name. Blessed be. Might as well stay standing. Verses 3 and 4 go down Moses. That'll be our closing hymn, just like the beginning.
Everything we do together, and how ably we have been led in today's community building by the Reverend Chaplain Anthony Jenkins. Thank you so much. Thank you. Friend, you can just beat a circuit back here to River Road like any day. We're here for it. You just soak it up. I mean, Ellicott City's not that far away. We could get him back here, right? Yeah. What a blessing it is to be one another's people and to receive each other's gifts. Of course, this morning we are also grateful for Cliff and for the choir, for the abundance of your talent, and for our tech crew, Danny, Marcia, Dave, making it happen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I hope you keep your readiness to clap and your skills at appreciation sharp, because it is winter cabaret season, people. Coming up this Saturday, February 24th, you can bring a potluck appetizer or a meal to share, cash for the cash bar, and all of your talent. This year, we will have DJ Danny Turner spinning some old school DJ sets. But don't be intimidated by that obvious incredible talent. Bring your talents as well. Also, Action in Montgomery, our broad-based interfaith community organizing network, of which we are such an essential part. We're joining together for an Annapolis Lobby Day on Wednesday, February 21st. This is an all-day event where AIM is going to partner up with our Maryland sister organizations in Howard County and Anne Arundel, and we'll meet with state representatives to lobby specifically for positions around affordable housing and climate equity and universal pre-K. This is what the people of faith in Maryland have asked us to stand for, and so we'll stand together. You can find out more in the e-weekly. Drop me an email or Liz Purcell, and we can let you know more. Also, registration for our 10th annual West Virginia Service Learning Trip is starting now. The link is in the e-weekly, and you can contact Beth for more information. It's a trip for youth, young adults, chaperones. It was a great blessing for me to be up on a very hot roof participating in that trip a few years ago, and I hope you'll consider joining in. And finally, if you were just, bored and looking for activities to do today or deeply called to climate justice, you can consider joining our Earth Ministries meeting in person in room 23 today or on Zoom at 11:30. The link is in the e-weekly. Or you can learn more about congregational polity, just what it means for the congregation to be its own instead of the congregation managed but by authorities from above. Congregational polity means the business of the congregation is all our business. We'll be talking about it in our UU history class in room 31 today at noon. Finally, the word benediction means good word. And for one last good word of blessing as we close our service today, I'd like to call back Reverend Jenkins.
Very much in the spirit of Harriet Tubman's divine feminine goddessness and her force of natureness, we'll close with some words from the first Black poet laureate of the state of Louisiana, great Black female voice, Pinky Gordon Lane. It's a piece called I Am Looking at Music. It is the color of light. It is the shape of sound high in the evergreens that lies suspended in hills. A blue line in a red sky. I am looking at sound. I am hearing the brightness of high bluffs and almond trees. I am tasting the wilderness of lakes, rivers, and streams, caught in an angle of song. I am remembering water that glows in the dawn, the motion tumbled in earth, life hidden in mounds. I am dancing a bright beam of light. I am remembering love. Ashe. Blessed be.